New York, yeah. Virgin. Thanks very much for having me here today. I'm going to talk about why happiness is a serious business and how your business can take happiness seriously. And I've been working a bit with Glassdoor the last couple of months. I did an article with them pre this around share price and happiness, and I'll talk about that later. So yes, I'm a data person. I am a statistician with a slightly weird speciality, happiness. And I've always been a data person. I went to Cambridge to do maths, and then after Cambridge I did what would now be called applied systems thinking. And I was lucky enough to be born before big computing. I mean, my lecturers would have probably used slide rules, when they were young. And so I was always taught how to simplify problems and create parameters around them so that when you approach solutions to them, you can find elegant solutions. So, and that really has always come into my work. But the other strand was people. I'm a people person. I'm quite a happy chap, actually. When people talk to me, I say I do happiness. They say, well, at least you live it too. So, but I'm a people person, and my mother was a family therapist, and in my 20s I trained as a therapist. I sort of wanted to understand what she had done, and one of the things I really learned in therapy, I had a fantastic older woman, Nan, who was my therapist, and she used to talk about their therapist only does three things. They listen to their client, they reflect back what they've heard, and then they try and give them insights in how to lead a better life. And that's all they do. And I realized that's what data does. That data listens. When you write the reports, it reflects back. And of course, you can try and promote better lives. And it really, my career has been about these two things. So, I like data. I like people. I particularly like data about people. And I started working in the policy world. So I met David Halpin many moons ago. I didn't have any grey hair. I don't know, you greyed a bit early, didn't you? But met him when he was head of Tony Blair's number 10 strategy unit. And he was very, very open to the idea that government should take well-being seriously. And I just set up a unit at a think tank called New Economics Foundation called the Centre for Wellbeing. And we were about how policy should be about well-being. And being a statistician, I wanted to measure it. We did lots of projects with the Government Office of Science on measuring well-being and policy. I worked with the Kingdom of Bhutan on their gross national happiness measures. And we did a lot of projects. I worked across Europe, measuring well-being across Europe, 23 nations, how you compare their well-being, personal and social well-being across time. And then I also created something called the Happy Planet Index, which was really our sort of big thing that we did. And the Happy Planet Index was about creating good lives now and good lives in the future. And if you're interested in all that stuff, I did a TED talk on it in 2010, and it's still out there on the web. So the world of work today is has got a massive pace of change going on. We're seeing change much more frequently all the time. And we've had the digitalization of the world. We've now got AI and robots growing. And the future is uncertain. The only thing that is certain is that it is uncertain. But at a macro level, we've also got obviously political uncertainty. We've got climate change looming over our tomorrows. But in the micro thing, that's really about firms having to innovate or die. Having to really change everything. I mean, Uberification of every business model is going on pretty much as well. So we've got a world where there's a lot of rapid change going on. And at the same time, organizations are powered by people. And the same things remain of attracting good people, like Angela were talking about, retaining good people, and getting the best out of good people. And so I think, and Glassdoor's a classic example of this, is that I think that the leadership of the future need to be comfortable with data, comfortable with people, but getting the best out of data and getting the best out of people. And that actually probably will be leadership right down to a team leadership level, where you've got to be good with your numbers and you've got to be good with your people. And I'm going to really talk to you now about why I think happiness can help you through all of this change and an understanding of emotions. Now, happiness is is a word that we use for a catch-all for positive emotions. But as human beings, we have negative emotions too. So we have anger, fear, sadness. And these are all functional. You know, when we talk about happiness, we don't want to say you can't feel these other emotions. That would be dehumanizing all of us. And anger and fear are about the fight and flight mechanism. They're clearly about that. And at work, if you feel angry, it's normally because someone's been treated unfairly or you've been treated unfairly. And it's actually the fastest moving emotion around an organization, anger. It's very contagious. If you feel frightened, say, of your boss, then what are you going to do? You go into a team meeting and you're going to freeze. You're going to say absolutely nothing. So if you've got a boss who's leading by fear, people are not going to be giving their best at work. But what about happiness? As I said, it's a catch-all word, really, for positive emotions. So from sort of, enthusiasm, where we're bursting with energy, to seize an opportunity. And enthusiasm is very contagious. We're mobilizing energy. We bring people with us when we feel enthusiastic. There can be emotions like curiosity and interest. Interest is a very focusing emotion, so it's helping us commit to tasks that are probably difficult in the short term, but are going to have medium-term benefits. And then we can have low energy emotions such as pride or satisfaction, where basically we're feeling like we're sort of glowing in the fact that a good job has been done, or we love the organization we work with. I've had a classic example there, where you felt so proud of working for Anglia Water that it brought tears to your eyes, literally. That pride, you're bursting with it. And that's very rare that you see organizational pride that strongly. But my word, they must be opening something up in that organization with that. So, really, what I want to say to you is that positive emotions, happiness, are about, from an evolutionary perspective, they're about creating and seizing opportunities. The negative emotions help us deal with threats. And all of you in your organizations want to survive. You're going to have to deal with threats, but you're wanting to innovate, so you're going to want to create and seize opportunities. So an innovative organization is going to be very, very fueled by positive emotions. And in terms of culture, this is really important, because a culture in an organization is really about the patterns of relating and behaving with one another. But a good culture is experienced within individuals. I'm a statistician. My unit of measurement is an individual. So people in a good culture are going to feel good. They're going to feel happy. And when we feel good, we do our best work. And really, that's what my talk's going to be about. So how do we measure it? If you all look at this question, how happy, it's only a Thursday, but how happy have you been this week, right? We got any 4s and 5s? Yeah, we got some 4s and 5s. 1s and 2s, you can just nod resignedly if you want to. If you've scored 4 or 5 this week, I imagine things have gone well, that you're getting on with your teammates, your people you work with, maybe your projects are moving forward well. And if you're 1 or 2, I imagine you're deeply frustrated. I imagine there's probably relationships going on wrong. There's probably feels roadblocks to you achieving what you want to do. In the middle, 3s? Any 3s? So if you're a 3, you're okay. But I would say okay isn't okay. I would say you're probably not doing your best work if you're at a 3 at the moment. And in organizations, this is really, really how you can start to get a gauge of how your people are feeling every week. And really, I've got a proposition to make, which is that happiness leads to success. The dominant model out there at the moment is that, if you work hard and you're successful, you will become happier. And so happiness is kicked off into the future. But I am actually going to say that if you're happier, success will follow. And I'm a statistician, so I'm going to show you data on that. So this first bit of data is from one of our clients, is Travelex. We survey 9,000 of them every month on their employee experience. And what we can do is we can track who stays and who goes. So this is happiness in quarter 1, and it's plotted against who left in quarter 2. So just 3 months later. And as you can see, the unhappy people left twice as often as the happy people. I mean, it makes sense. Happiness is a signal. If you're unhappy, then jump, move somewhere else, So this is an early warning system for them. And in fact, we can predict from our data that a half-point increase in happiness at a team level leads to a 17% reduction in staff turnover the next quarter. So we can see that as predicting those two things. And how have Travelex used this? Well, now this is on every leader's dashboard about their KPIs. They have what we call a happiness KPI. And I would say, I think this is the ultimate people metric for your organization. How everyone's feeling every week in your organization, because happiness ebbs and flows. The second piece of data I want to show you is from another study. It's not run by us, but it's 2,000 teams where they measured happiness at time 1 and financial success at time 1. And then they measured them again time 2, 6 to 9 months later. They did a piece of statistical wizardry called structural equation modeling. And they're looking at the cross correlations between them and basically seeing, does success predict happiness? Does happiness predict success? They found both of them were statistically significant. They both worked. But from happiness to success was twice as strong as from success to happiness. So happiness is building success for your organizations. Third one I want to do is share prices. So Perry just started to talk about this, but Glassdoor is fantastic for that. What did you say? Shrouded, unshrouding the data. So you're de-shrouding the data. So this is a study in the US using Glassdoor. It's comparing it to the S&P 500. They looked at the organizations that were scoring best on Glassdoor and were listed. And they plotted them against this over time, and you get that. So they are the organizations with the positive cultures are actually increasing their shareholder value by 7% extra year on year. Warren Buffett would be very happy with those returns, yeah? And actually I looked at the Glassdoor top 20 here. Many of you be here. 11 of you were listed. Anglo Water aren't listed. You've just got some, I looked up, you've got some loan schemes, but you haven't got some debt, but you haven't got any shares. So anyway, 11 of the 20 were listed. In 2018, 10 of those 11 did better than the FTSE 100. So as a class, doing absolutely brilliantly compared to that. The next bit of data I want to do is about creativity and innovation. It's really difficult to measure creativity. I don't know how you would think you would do it. So psychologists play with this the whole time. Psychologists love to experiment, not on animals, but on people, and they love to set tasks. And this is a lateral problem-solving task. And what they ask you to do in an experiment is they ask you to take these matches, these tacks, and a candle, and attach the candle to the wall in such a way that when you light it, it doesn't drip. And it's a bit of a mind mess. But there's actually a very simple solution, which is that you notice that the tacks come in a box. And you empty the tacks and you pin the box to the wall, and then, hey presto, there you are. Very easy to see once you've done it. But there's lots of other ways they do these tasks. So one of them is that they might say, you know, how many ways can you think of using a paperclip? And people will come up with different ways of doing it. So these are the experiments. But what they also do is they manipulate people's moods and see how they solve these problems. So they manipulated some people into a good mood. So maybe they'll show half of you cats playing or babies gurgling, and you feel very happy. And we show you lot over here cats being dissected and babies screaming, and you're going to be in a bad mood. And then they set them a task, and then they see how they perform the task. So they also had a control group they did nothing to. So this is how the control group did. 13% of them in 10 minutes solved the problem. So the next group is the unhappy people. 20% of people solved it. That's interesting. Maybe management by fear works a little bit. Maybe that's why it's so pervasive. It gets some results. You know, emotions from an evolutionary perspective are energy, and they are helping you solve your problems in some ways that you face a threat. So there is some of that. But don't take the idea that management fear is very good, because you have a look now at the people who are in the good mood. 75% of them solved the Dunker candle experiment in the 10 minutes. And why are they doing that? Because when we're in a good mood, we see the bigger picture. You know, when we're in a bad mood, we're narrow. We're probably looking down. I mean, if you were going to cartoon someone in a bad mood, they're sort of looking down and fear and up. You know, you're up like this. And so you're seeing connections. So for creativity, this is massively important. So if you're running a brainstorming session with a team, don't leave the treat till afterwards. Have it at the beginning of the brainstorming, yeah? Put people into a good mood before you start doing it, because you're going to get people to be more creative. So I would propose to you that happiness is a serious business and your business should take it seriously. It's going to lead to future success. And the brilliant thing is that you can actually open a sort of virtuous cycle with success building happiness here. That you have to watch out that you've got the opposite going on, that there's a vicious cycle there too. But if I'm going to say to you, start with happiness, you're quite fairly going to say to me, well, how do I do that? How can I do that? Because I know how to sort of build business success in some ways, but how do I do this? So I was actually asked to do a big bit of research with how I met you in New York for Robert Half, which is a big recruitment agency, and they want to do a big project on Work Happy. So we proposed to them when the recruitment process for the project was going on. I said, well, let's do a huge global survey because no one really understands the drivers and how they compare across nations. So that's what we did. 22,000 people globally, 30 questions on their happiness at work. And when it came to the results, someone in their marketing department thought British accent, beard, long hair, Harry Potter, wizard. Goodness knows. Anyway. We found out all sorts of interesting things, such as that smaller firms are happier than larger firms. So as a large firm, you're always going to have to be trying to create smallness in the bigness there. But I was more interested in the structure of the data, like what's driving happiness. And we came up with these 5 things, which were that relationships, which are called connect. We frame these in terms of positive actions that people can take, because these are sort of like signpost to where happiness is. So it's connect, relationships. It's be fair, social justice, feeling treated with respect, dignity at work, psychological safety, if you want to call it that. It's empower. Autonomy would be an official word, but our American cousins would call it, releasing your superpower within. And of course, we can laugh at them, but actually there's something very serious about using the strengths, using the things that you're really good at work is actually where people are going to get the best. Challenge people. Actually, stretch is good. We like to be stretched. We like to learn new things. We're curious, learning creatures. And inspire, which is that when people feel that the organization they're working for is doing good in the world, when they feel they're accomplishing things with the company and in their own work, you're going to feel, bigger to try and do your work. And so these really are the sort of ingredients of happiness of work. Connect, be fair, empower, challenge, inspire. But ingredients still need cooking. So you still need to think about the processes that you do. And as I said, I was a systems thinker, so I'm and if I also go back to my therapeutic background, which was, listen, reflect back, change. So this is really a learning feedback loop. And in organizations, I think there are 2 ones that you need to set up if you want to create systematically a positive, productive, happy culture in your organization. One of them is team-based. It's very quick. It's very responsive. It's weekly, we call it, but I call it feeling fast. Danny Kahneman, who we talked about earlier, wrote a book called Thinking Fast, Thinking Slow. We've called these feeling fast, thinking slow. The fast one is weekly. Every week, ask people in your team, as a team leader, how happy were you last week? What went well? What didn't go well? How can this week be better? Quick, responsive, agile, if you want to use that word. And then there's a slower, more strategic one, perhaps deep culture like you were talking about, but actually thinking about the patterns across the organization. So as Travelex do, an early warning system to know if any teams are in difficulty, so we can create data analytics for them to do that and how they can plan and act systematically with what they do. Now I've set these 2 feedback loops side by side, but the reality is that teams are smaller than organizations, and so they actually sit a little bit more like this. The team loop is inside the organizational one. And if the organization is changing and the team is not aligned with that change, then effectively the team gets sort of, if the big loop is turning this way in the team, you get sort of discombobulated as a team. You're basically getting thrown around inside the big ball. And we'll have all had that experience when an organization is changing and we're not with the change. And similarly, if a team is trying to change, and the organization isn't moving, it's like trying to struggle uphill up the inside of that loop, yeah? Like that Greek god who pushes the stone up the wing and keeps on falling back down again. But you get these 2 aligned, and it's like you're at Heathrow Airport and you're walking along, and then you hit that travelator and you're really, really moving. And that is when you absolutely release the potential in an organization, when you get every team and the whole organization aligned in where they're going. And that really is the trick when you're going to get a happy, high-performing organization built on a good culture. Now, I'm a systems thinker, I'm a designer, so what I've been doing over the last few years is designing a system that basically operationalizes this model. And so it's called Friday, and we create indicators for teams, we create little presentation modes for teams on a Monday morning to look at their results, we create impact analysis on everything they're doing. And it all creates what I call a happiness KPI for the organization. And I think this is the ultimate people metric for organizations to look at. So, finally, happiness is a serious business. I hope I've given you data on that. I hope I've shown you how your business can take happiness seriously. That there are key ingredients to happiness at work. There are 5: connect, be fair, empower, challenge, inspire. They need cooking up. You need to feel fast and think slow and get those feedbacks loops working. And Friday can help you, but I do have to point out that other days of the week are available too. Thank you very much indeed. Thanks, man.